What is up, my friends? My name is Craig and I'm here to bring you the very latest news that you need to know around Liverpool Football Club. I want to start off by saying a massive thank you to everybody for your feedback yesterday after our first stream in the studio. We are working on trying to dampen down that echo and your feedback was invaluable for us, so thank you for that. In today's video though, we're going to be discussing RAYAN, Alex Scott. We're going to be talking about Liverpool pushing hard to sign Yan DIAMONDE. We'll have a little bit on Palestra and Connor Bradley and a few other bits and pieces around the right back situation. As always though, I will be back here tonight at 8:45 for the late night agenda, but until then, let's get cracking with the news. So we'll start off with a report from Fabrizio Romano that said Marco Palestra to Newcastle is not expected to happen despite Newcastle pushing hard. Inter Milan still about €5 million short of the valuation that Atalanta have on their right back, but will Liverpool enter the race? Well, David Lynch, speaking to our friends at Anfield Index, reckons that so far he's heard nothing from Anfield sources to suggest that Liverpool are about to make that move. Now, speaking about moves being made, Nico Schlotterbeck, some news breaking today that Real Madrid are interested in Nico Schlotterbeck and are planning on making him a contract offer very soon. As we know, Schlotterbeck does have that 50 to 60 million euro release clause in his new Borussia Dortmund contract, but cards on the table, I really want Liverpool to try to sign Schlotterbeck. He is the ideal one for me. I know we went through a list the other night of players that the Reds are rumoured to be interested in, but Nico Schlotterbeck should be right at the very top of that list. For me, as you can notice today, I've moved the microphone a little bit closer to my mouth, hoping that might help with some of the noise issues. But again, as I mentioned at the start of the video, we are working on that echo. So let's talk a little bit now about RAYAN, because a report today from the newspaper suggests that Liverpool are among the clubs interested. The report reads as follows. Liverpool are among the frontrunners to sign Bournemouth winger RAYAN, with Andoni Iraola said to see the Brazilian as a potential long-term replacement for Mohamed Salah. Now look, we all know that the long-term replacement for Mohamed Salah is most likely going to be Yan DIAMONDE if the club can get their ducks in a row. That's certainly the one that we're pushing for. But we do need more than one signing. But the problem with RAYAN is the price. He has a release clause that, well, quite frankly, it's ridiculous. It's £130 million and that won't become active until January 2027. So any club trying to sign him from Bournemouth are going to have a difficult job negotiating it because they are in a strong position. But let's be honest about it. I can't see anybody coming in at any point to trigger that release clause of £130 million because it is an astonishingly high number. But again, it is something to keep an eye on, and Andoni Iraola would know all about him. Same with Alex Scott, and we'll move on to talk a little bit about Mr. Scott in a moment. But let's talk Connor Bradley, because David Lynch has given a bit of an update on this, speaking with Anfield Index. He said, it is understood that one of the priorities for Liverpool this summer is right back. Duties on the right-hand side of defence were shared between Joe Gomez, Dominic Szoboszlai and Curtis Jones, with nobody nailing down a place properly last season. Fortunately, David said, senior Anfield figures insist that they have learned lessons from last season and will take steps to ensure that they don't have similar issues this season. Now, what will that mean for Connor Bradley? Well, again, reports today suggest that he hopes to be back in first team training just after the start of the new campaign. So he'll be playing catch up for a little while, meaning we probably do have to go out there and get a starting right back in ASAP and give Andoni Iraola as soon as he can, or as long as he can, to work with his new charge. Let's move on to Alex Scott. As I mentioned a moment ago, this report comes via Alex Crook of TalkSport, and he said Bournemouth sought-after midfielder Alex Scott is valued at around £80 million. Now, it seems to be that everyone's just lost their mind this summer. Any player that is in any way decent has a price tag up there somewhere around the 80 to 100 million quid mark. But he is their player, and much like us as a selling club, we have the right to set our fees at whatever we think a player is worth. This goes on to say that Scott is emerging as a target for Liverpool and Manchester United. However, Bournemouth do not want to sell. Well, of course they don't. They're not going to want to see their team ripped apart. Marco Rose isn't going to walk in to a club that is now in Europe and see his best players go out the door. So again, there could be some tricky conversations coming up this summer if indeed Liverpool would like to bring Alex Scott to Anfield. So Romano said this about the same situation. New contract proposal from Bournemouth to Alex Scott includes the possibility of a release clause. Now, when that release clause becomes active, how much it would be for, that's a whole another matter. But it is at least a development that they are planning for a potential exit for Alex Scott. Maybe not this summer, but if you're putting in a release clause, the player's agent isn't going to agree to that unless it's somewhat reasonable. So let's wait and see what happens there. Florian Plettenberg said earlier on that Liverpool have lost the race to sign talented Hertha Berlin youngster Kenneth Einhorn, excuse me. We've talked about this one before. It looks as if he's going to want to stay in Germany, according to his report, with Bayer Leverkusen pushing really, really hard. And look, I don't know how big of a loss this is or isn't because I know very little about him. So let me know your thoughts in there. Transfer sector and Matt Law of The Telegraph have said the Premier League clubs have held talks over buying an artificial intelligence chatbot to help them in transfer negotiations. I thought this was a joke when I first read it, I really did, but the piece goes on to say at least 3 top clubs are seriously considering using a digital clone of their rivals to gain an advantage in transfer talks. I mean, it's getting out of hand, isn't it? It's not that difficult. We want your player. How much do you want for the player? You don't need a chatbot. I guess maybe to try and remove the emotion in the decision making, or, you know, bravado. If it's us males sitting down, we do like to try and get one over on other males, but I don't know. Let me know what you think about this one. The idea of a chatbot doing transfer negotiations, I'm not really sure how I feel about that. No, I know I make jokes calling Richard Hughes Richie Robot, but I'd rather a humanoid Richie Robot than an AI one. At least I think I would. What do you think? Right, let's move on. Goal Data have said this, quoting Record in Portugal as their source. They say that Liverpool are leading the race to bring Trincao back to the Premier League. The Sporting Lisbon winger is somebody whose name has been mentioned on a few occasions this summer. This piece here says the winger has improved significantly since leaving the Premier League, and the club at the top of the list to sign him are Liverpool, and they say potentially triggering his €60 million release clause. I really don't know on this one, folks. I can't put any meat on those bones because I've only seen the reports the same as you guys. But Trincao obviously has moved on since he's gone over to Sporting Lisbon and progressed as a player. But are Liverpool really going to pay that €60 million release clause? For me, I'd much rather see them pay less than that to get Jared Bowen out of West Ham. So, coming back to David Lynch and the situation with Conor Bradley, David said this to Anfield Index. Conor Bradley is understood to be targeting a return shortly after the season starts, and Anfield sources, as I mentioned earlier on, playing down that link to Palestra. But the big news today for me, or at least the most intriguing news, comes from Fabrizio Romano. He said that Liverpool are really pushing hard to sign Yan DIAMONDE and are insisting to make it happen. This was on the Fabrizio Romano podcast. They're offering important money to the player to get the deal done. On the other side, he said, Paris Saint-Germain are also keen, but it depends on what happens with the likes of Bradley Barcola, Gonzalo Ramos and Kang In Lee, players that have to leave PSG, while at the same time Liverpool have already made some space with, of course, Mohamed Salah departing. So this does put Liverpool in a good position to try and push on with this one. And I think, as much as I don't have an inside track on it, my gut feeling is good on this one. And I do think if Yan DIAMONDE leaves, Liverpool are really working hard to put themselves in the pole position to get that signature over the line. So that is it from me, my friends, for this evening. But I will be back here tonight at 8:45 for the late night agenda, where I hope to see you there. Don't forget to let me know your thoughts on everything that we've discussed in this video in the comment section. Drop a like if you've enjoyed it. And again, we look forward to catching up with you tonight. Much love. Take care.